Favored by the early Christians, most of Plato's writings still survive. Yet, despite his renown, he is still often misunderstood or misrepresented. Avoiding any overall analysis or categorization, in this video you may learn details about one of Plato's dialogues. Lysis, I wonder what friendship could be. This one is not truly a dialogue. It is a narrative in the voice of Socrates. The philosopher encounters a pair of youths. They are on the way to meet with other youths at some recluse location wherein they usually discuss any number of subjects or listen to some teacher. Socrates, being older, is initially reluctant to accompany them. Yet, his reluctance is voiced as if with a sexual innuendo. Yes, Plato has the philosopher speak as if he were enticed at the hope of perhaps having relations with one of the young men at the gathering. Be it as it may have been, one of the young men, Hippothales, shyly reveals that he has a favorite, a love or special attraction to some boy they expect to find at the locale. The other young man, Tisippus, accuses Hippothales of being completely enamored or obsessed. He says he even writes poems to his love. The philosopher asks Hippothales to share some of his poems. He wishes to judge whether the young man says,
"What a lover ought to say about his love."
Since the boy refuses, his friend describes the nature of his verses. By the way, the boy being referenced, the one in the poems, is named Lysis. Socrates chastises Hippothales for obsessively flattering his lover. He explains that not only is such an attitude shameful, but also,
"The fair, when anyone praises or magnifies them, are filled with the spirit of pride and vanity."
Hippothales is grateful for the advice and further asks the philosopher to come with him to meet Lysis so that he may instruct him on the subject in greater detail. The whole subsequent scene is described making the dialogue seem very much more like a narrative than a play. Socrates as if flirts with Lysis and the boy sitting beside him, a certain Menexenus. For what is worth, let it be known that the flirtation consists of the philosopher asking a series of questions that begin simple but then turn into very broad subjects. I feel obliged to note that Xenophon, another student of Socrates whose writings you may also learn in this channel, describes the manner in which Socrates seduced an adult woman famed for her beauty. It is a curious passage in the book titled Memorabilia. It does not seem to pertain to anything else in that book. Perhaps these descriptions by Plato explain Xenophon's motivation. Meaning, Plato was a homosexual, but there is no reason to believe that Socrates was likewise. Either way, for a brief moment the boy named Menexenus leaves, which gives Socrates the chance to speak directly and solely to Lysis. He first asks him,
"Do you think that anyone is happy who is in the condition of a slave, and who cannot do what he likes?"
This is to enter into a series of questions that indicate the little freedom that Lysis has. It ends by the philosopher saying the likes of,
"Is a strange thing that a free man should be governed by a slave."
To be clear, this is because Lysis is underage, and therefore his parents restrict much of his freedom. The slave in the reference is the teacher his parents have acquired for him. Subsequently, the philosopher indicates, by another series of questions, that the real cause for the dependence and the restrictions is not simply his age. It is his lack of understanding, his lack of knowledge and cognitive development. In making this claim, there is an analogy to a doctor's authority, meaning one would not trust the things a doctor often does or recommends if one does not suppose that the doctor knows. The prior segues into the question of friendship. The context is whether a person is considered to have some sort of utility, of being a beneficial associate, as the doctor is in questions of medicine. Consider the lines.
"Neither can your father or mother love you, nor can anyone love anybody else, in so far as they are useless to them."
This is all to say that as the youth needs restrictions and teachers because he lacks knowledge, he is also not yet worthy of friendship. Of course, this is meant to humble Lysis' vanity. Menexenus comes back and resumes his place beside Lysis. The latter is not offended by what the philosopher has so astutely and subtly indicated. Instead, he tells the philosopher that he wishes Menexenus, who is very pugnacious, to be tamed, to be less aggressive and domineering. Socrates agrees and declares for all to hear that while some people desire certain goods such as horses, palaces, slaves, or simply renown and fame, he himself, instead, desires friendships.
I should greatly prefer a real friend to all the gold of Darius.
Darius being the king of the Persian Empire. Subsequently, he pretends that he needs Menexenus to counsel him about friendship. He asks whether it is
the lover or the beloved the friend, or may either be the friend?
Notice that here and subsequently the term friend is assumed to mean as not necessarily a mutually directed relationship. Rather, it is assumed that a person may be friend of someone that is not a friend in return. The questioning leads to the following initial conclusion.
Then many are loved by their enemies and hated by their friends, and are the friends of the enemies and the enemies of their friends. Yet how absurd.
The subject turns to what makes friendships ignite, forge, and cement. Socrates quotes some unspecified poet as saying,
God is ever drawing like towards like and making them acquainted.
Subsequently, it is concluded that bad people are incapable of befriending with other bad people. Curiously, nearly uniquely in Plato's dialogues, this point is never thereafter refuted. It is taken as an unquestionable conclusion, meaning the bad are not capable, by definition, of real friendship. Therefore, for the time being, only the good are friends. If one wishes friendship, one must be good. Yet, the philosopher raises an issue with the prior. He holds that the good, as it is entailed in the concept, are autonomous. They are in no need of anyone else. Meaning,
if neither can be of any use to the other, how can they be loved by one another?
Yes, as previously stated, utility is essential for any relationship. Yet, there is nothing that good people require from other good people. The good does not need any friends. He, in fact, needs near to nothing at all. Truly, nothing, LOL. I should note, this understanding of the good is very cynic. That is a now lost philosophy, a philosophy of being natural and autonomous. As the prior answer might be unsatisfactory, Socrates introduces a new premise. He says that he has heard some philosophers argue that
the like is the greatest enemy of the like, the good of the good, that of necessity the most like are most full of envy, strife, and hatred of one another, and the most unlike of friendship.
So, it is the most opposed, or at least the different, that are more likely to be friends. Those that are too similar will compete and naturally envy one another. Of course, as it was stated before, the bad cannot be friends with anyone, especially not with the good. As such, Socrates introduces a new notion, the idea that some are neither good or bad. Some people are a mixture. LOL. Yes, the mixed may be friends with either the good or others that are also mixed. However, since things cannot relate if they are the same, then the mixed cannot be friends with other mixed. The only friendships are between the good and the mixed. To explain the prior, an analogy is made to the sixth relationship to health or to a doctor, meaning the mixed can only be friends of the good because they have some bad in them. Socrates rejoices, believing he has found the answer. Yet, a suspicion arises within him. The philosopher first says,
arguments, like men, are often pretenders.
A pretend friendship and unreal friendship is not for the relation, but rather for some ulterior motive. The analogy is made of a father that wishes medicine not for the sake of the medicine, but for the health that it will provide his sick child. This is supposed to illustrate that some people want friendship with the good simply because they fear the bad. It is argued that these are not real friends. To end the dialogue, reference is made to the idea of congeniality, of enjoying the presence of the other. However, they quickly remember that similars are not supposed to enjoy the company of other similars. Therefore, the riddle, as in most dialogues, is left unresolved. Socrates ends with a joke about the wishing of friendship despite ignorance of what is friendship. On this channel, you may find summaries of all kinds of authors and books. Since Plato arguably covers so little about friendship, know that other authors, such as Plutarch, covers the topic more extensively.
The quick to break friendships are those that have never suffered the harm of enmity.
Laughter often produces acquaintances, but rarely yields friendships.
If you enjoy or gain from my aphorisms, know that I have thousands. I will be writing books with short thematic essays composed out of aphorisms. These essays are profound and intriguing yet easy to read. For very cheap copies, look up Protagoras Pause in the Amazon website. I repeat, Protagoras Pause, that's my name.